Unfortunately, I think we're going to have to move on from Coach Drinkwitz, or he's going to have to move on from us. I think we have the answer to that question. Can Coach Drinkwitz win the big games at Missouri? And the answer is no. But can Coach Drinkwitz win the big games at another program like a Florida, like an LSU, like an Auburn? That still has yet to be answered. And unfortunately, I think as Missouri fans, we are going to find out shortly, because I think Drink is gone at the end of this season, at the end of 2025. My worst take for the Missouri Tigers this season, worst by far, was claiming that not only was this the best team on paper under Drinkwitz during his tenure, but that Bo Pribula was the real thing. And look, I hope Bo comes back. It's not a career-ending injury, but let's be real, let's face it, he was either getting worse as time went on, or the more likely scenario is the opponents just became real. I put too much stock into what I was seeing in those first 5 games. And I thought Bo Pribula was going to be a really good throwing quarterback from what I was seeing in those 5 games. Now, good news for the Tigers, Zollers, in the time that he spent at the end of that Vandy game, looked a lot more aggressive, and we just looked a little more effective throwing the ball. Now, the game kind of dictated we had to keep throwing the ball down there, but Zollers looked like especially since he hasn't had any regular snaps this whole season, looked like he was being somewhat aggressive. Now, before anybody can come at me with my hot takes that I've had for the Missouri Tigers, I'll tell you what, my prediction prior to this season, and even saying that this is Drinkwitz's best Missouri team on paper, I still had them going 7-5 this season. I had them at 5-0 heading into that Alabama game. I had them losing to Alabama and essentially losing to Vanderbilt. I had them splitting the 2 games between Auburn and Vanderbilt when we were doing the predictions, and I actually said they will lose at Vandy, win at Auburn. And some of you took exception to my prediction that they'll end up 7-5 at the time that they were 5-0. Now, looking at it right now, that 7-5 prediction actually looks pretty good. And I absolutely hate to say that. I wanted to be absolutely wrong on that. But I think as Missouri Tiger fans, things could get a little ugly, especially when you look at all of the coaching openings here in the SEC. You've got LSU, Florida, soon to be Auburn. They're all looking to spend big money on a coach. If things go even further south this season at Missouri, and I think the possibility is there, we may end up losing a coach and looking at 7-5 as well. That's a good enough season for what happened. Unfortunately, Bo Pribula, the running attack, and this offensive line were a house of cards. Once we got into the meat of our schedule within the SEC, we really got to see what this Missouri team is kind of made of. They're not a bad team. They're actually a really good, solid top 25 team. But I've had to come to grips so far this past week in saying that this Missouri team this year is not a playoff contender. And let me ask you, Missouri fans, do you want to see this team make it into the playoffs? Do you really think this team could compete in the playoffs if you could snap your fingers, wave a wand, and get them into the football playoffs? Do you really want that? This is a solid top 25 team. This is a top half SEC team at most, but definitely not an SEC championship contending team. Definitely not a college football playoff contending team. And let's just say everything right now. Coach Drink has done everything he can for this Missouri program. I love Coach Drink and everything that he has done here for Missouri, but I think we have seen all that he is going to be able to take us to this place. And if we think that we should be a playoff contending team and one of those top SEC programs, we're just going to have to spend a lot more money. Or maybe being just a perennial top 25 team is good enough here in Missouri. That's a perfectly feasible question. Top 25 every single year is good enough here at Missouri. Maybe it is. And if that's the case, and I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong, but if we're happy with being a top 25 team, beating teams like Auburn, Arkansas, South Carolina more often than not, then I do hope that we end up keeping Coach Drink for a little bit longer. He runs a really good program. There's very few negative headlines coming out of Columbia these days with Coach Drink at the top. But if we're wanting to be contenders, if we're wanting to take a chance at being one of those 2 teams playing for the SEC championship, one of those 12 teams right now playing for the college football playoffs, beating the top teams, beating a top 10 team, beating a top 10 Alabama team after having 2 weeks off to prepare. Unfortunately, I think we're going to have to move on from Coach Drinkwitz, or he's going to have to move on from us. I think we have the answer to that question. Can Coach Drinkwitz win the big games at Missouri? And the answer is no. But can Coach Drinkwitz win the big games at another program like a Florida, like an LSU, like an Auburn? That still has yet to be answered. And unfortunately, I think as Missouri fans, we are going to find out shortly, because I think Drink is gone at the end of this season, at the end of 2025.